Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
Namaskar. Welcome to another episode of Editorial. Today is the weekend and I have just one topic for you. Yesterday, two leaders addressed the United Nations General Assembly. One, our very own Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Damodar Das Modi, and second, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan Niazi. Two people spoke with clearly two objectives. Now, our editorial today is to analyze these two gentlemen's speech. Okay, I spoke to you about the third division, and that third division is the reply that India gave to the Pakistani Prime Minister's speech. Oh, it was beautiful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about our own Prime Minister's speech. Then we will talk about Mr. Imran Khan's speech, and then I will show you that 6-minute clip of the reply that India gave the Pakistani Prime Minister. I thought it was brilliantly drafted and brilliantly delivered. So let's start with our Prime Minister's speech. Let's get right into the show. Two leaders had very clear objectives of why those two gentlemen were there to address the United Nations General Assembly. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is very clear. He is very clear of his objectives. PM Modi 2.0 is looking at himself as a world leader. It was very clear during his USA tour. It was very clear during the Howdy Modi event. And it is very, very clear during the United Nations General Assembly. Let's take 2 minutes and hear this speech, part of the speech, and then we'll take it further. Just hear this.
अध्यक्ष महोदय, इस वर्ष दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा चुनाव हुआ। दुनिया के सबसे बड़े लोकतंत्र में दुनिया में सबसे ज्यादा लोगों ने वोट देकर मुझे और मेरी सरकार को पहले से ज्यादा मजबूत जनादेश दिया और इस जनादेश की वजह से ही आज फिर मैं यहां आप सबके बीच हूं। लेकिन इस जनादेश से निकला संदेश इससे भी ज्यादा बड़ा है, ज्यादा व्यापक है और ज्यादा प्रेरक है।
So our Prime Minister Modi spoke about how many people voted in India. He spoke about how more people came out to vote for India, how his majority and how his popularity and majority in India increased. He was actually talking about how powerful he is in India currently. Well, I don't know how relevant that was for the United Nations General Assembly, but definitely, it was relevant to ensure that his image is enhanced and consolidated as a very, very strong leader of a very strong country. So that was something which was very significant. Of course, he spoke about the facts like he built 110 million toilets in just 5 years. He spoke about 500 million people given annual healthcare facility of close to 5 lakh Indian rupees. He spoke about 370 million bank accounts that has been opened. He spoke about the world's largest digital identification program and all of that. So he spoke about all the stuff that he has done for the last 5 years. Some of them he had done, some of them was initiated by somebody else, but of course. So he spoke about all that. So it was, in a way, a fantastic brand communication, brand Modi communication that he did yesterday in that podium. Okay, so not only that, he also spoke about single-use plastic. He also spoke how proud he is that he has implemented that in India, and he saw a poster on his way up to the United Nations General Assembly. He spoke about water conservation. He spoke about environmental conservation. He spoke about terrorism. And he spoke about how Indian soldiers have sacrificed their lives for UN peacekeeping missions. He spoke about how important it is for India to maintain peace and how seriously we take it. He spoke about fighting terrorism, and he spoke about how India is absolutely serious and how India is dedicated to fight terrorism and why the world should be equally serious and dedicated to do the same. Finally, he concluded by quoting Vivekananda, where he said that 125 years ago, the great spiritual guru, Swami Vivekananda, gave this message to the world during the World Parliament of Religion in Chicago. And the message, he said, was harmony and peace and not dissension. Today, the message from the world's largest democracy for the international community, he said, is still the same: harmony and peace. So his speech was very classy. His speech was good, effective. Like I said, marketed himself very, very well. In the meantime, also spoke about what are the developments in India, which was brought about by him, and also how these developments are going to be relevant in the World Forum. All in all, good speech. Now let's come to our next gentleman, Imran Khan Niazi. You see, when Imran Khan Niazi became the Prime Minister of Pakistan, a lot of us actually thought that Pakistan finally got a matured Prime Minister. A lot of us also hoped that probably the relations between India and Pakistan would improve. Why yesterday? For the last couple of months, this matured, worldly wise man with a worldview, Imran Khan, almost mutated to something else, which actually surprised a lot of people in the world. Imran Khan, for the last couple of months, was desperately trying to communalize the Article 370 issue. He was trying to communalize Kashmir. When he realized possibly his diplomacy was not working, possibly his going out and campaigning against the abrogation of Article 370 was not working, Imran Khan took to communalizing the issue. It started with the OIC giving that statement yesterday, which was drafted by Pakistan. The only thing he spoke about yesterday was about Islamophobia. The only thing that he spoke yesterday was about how terrorists are not just Muslims, but there are Sri Lankan terrorists, there are Hindu terrorists, and so on and so forth. The only thing that he spoke about was how RSS was linked with Mussolini and Hitler, and how all that is impacting India, and how Narendra Modi was part of RSS, and therefore how he was trying to create bloodshed in Kashmir.
What is RSS? RSS, Mr. Narendra Modi is a life member of RSS. RSS was an organization that was inspired by Adolf Hitler and Mussolini, came about in 1925. They believed in racial purity, racial superiority. They also believed they were an Aryan race, like the Nazi believed they were an Aryan race. All that I'm saying can be verified. This is the time of information revolution. You can Google all this, what I'm saying. But it is very important for me to explain this to you so you know what is happening in India. This RSS believed in the ethnic cleansing of Muslims from India. At one point, there was racial superiority of the Hindu race. Secondly, it was hatred for the Muslims and for the Christians, because they believed that this golden age of Hindu civilization was stopped because of Muslim rule centuries back and then the British rule of India. So it was racial superiority and hatred for Muslims and Christians. This is openly stated. You look at the founding fathers of RSS, Golwalkar and Savarkar. Just Google them and you'll find out. And this ideology of hate is what murdered the great Mahatma Gandhi in 1948. It was this ideology of hate that made Narendra Modi in 2002 do a pogrom against Muslims in Gujarat when he was the chief minister. He allowed 3 days for these RSS goons who were inspired by the Hitler brown shirts. They actually wear brown shirts.
He spoke like a kid. He spoke like a kid complaining to the teacher. And that was sad, sad indeed. In fact, there is nothing one can discuss in what he says because there was no pertaining points in what he said. There was nothing that somebody could take and ponder or analyze and say, okay, this is what he meant, or this is what he chose to mean, or this is what he wanted to do, or this is what he was trying to communicate. He was not talking, he was complaining yesterday. What is also scary now is this man's desperation is getting worse by the day. At a drop of a hat, Imran Khan has started talking nuclear, which he did yesterday also. In fact, one of the statements that he made, please hear this.
Supposing a country 7 times smaller than its neighbor is faced with the choice, either you surrender or you fight for your freedom till death, what will we do? I ask myself this question. And my belief is, La ilaha illallah, there is no God but one. And we will fight. And when a nuclear armed country fights to the end, it will have consequences far beyond the borders. It will have consequences for the world, which is why I repeat I'm here. Because I'm warning you, it's not a threat. It's a fair worry that where are we headed? And I've come here to tell the UN, you've got to, this is a test for the United Nations. You are the one who guaranteed the people of Kashmir the right of self-determination.
The fact is, Indian Muslims, especially Kashmiris, have more or less realized that Pakistan doesn't stand for any Muslims. Because if this man stood for Muslims, like a lot of people are asking, and we've been asking this for last almost 3 months, if this man stood for Muslims, he would have stood in that same podium and spoken about China too. He would have spoken about the Muslims in China, the state of affairs of Muslims in China, and then he would have spoken about Kashmir or whichever parts in the world, would have made sense. He could have spoken about Palestine. He didn't utter a word, not a word against Palestine. So no Palestine, no China, only India, only Kashmir. What Muslims is he talking about? So yesterday's speech was not just desperate. It was also hypocrisy. Before I end my show, like I said, my last segment, I want you to, if you have the time, please hear the 6-minute segments where India answered his question, and I thought it was beautifully done. Till we meet next time. Namaskar.
Mr. President, I take the floor to exercise India's right of reply to the statement made by the Prime Minister of Pakistan. Every word spoken from the podium of this august assembly, it is believed, carries the weight of history. Unfortunately, what we heard today from Prime Minister Imran Khan of Pakistan was a callous portrayal of the world in binary terms. Us versus them, rich versus poor, north versus south, developed versus developing, Muslims versus others. A script that fosters divisiveness at the United Nations, attempts to sharpen differences and stir up hatred are, simply put, hate speech. Rarely has the General Assembly witnessed such misuse, rather abuse, of an opportunity to reflect. Words matter in diplomacy. The invocation of phrases such as pogrom, bloodbath, racial superiority, pick up the gun, and fight to the end reflect a medieval mindset and not a 21st century vision. Prime Minister Imran Khan's threat of unleashing nuclear devastation qualifies as brinksmanship, not statesmanship. Even coming from the leader of a country that has monopolized the entire value chain of the industry of terrorism, Prime Minister Khan's justification of terrorism was brazen and incendiary. For someone who was once a cricketer and believed in the gentleman's game, today's speech bordered on crudeness of a variety reminiscent of the guns of Dara Adam Khel. Mr. President, now that Prime Minister Imran Khan has invited UN observers to Pakistan to verify that there are no militant organizations in Pakistan, the world will hold him to that promise. Here are a few questions that Pakistan can respond to as a precursor to the proposed verification. Can Pakistan confirm the fact that it is home to 130 UN-designated terrorists and 25 terrorist entities listed by the UN as of today? Will Pakistan acknowledge that it is the only government in the world that provides pension to an individual listed by the UN in the Al-Qaeda and Daesh sanctions list? Can Pakistan explain why, here in New York, its premier bank, the Habib Bank, had to shut shop after it was fined millions of dollars over terror financing? Will Pakistan deny that the Financial Action Task Force has put the country on notice for its violations of more than 20 of the 27 key parameters? And finally, would Prime Minister Khan deny to the city of New York that he was an open defender of Osama bin Laden? Mr. President, having mainstreamed terrorism and hate speech, Pakistan is trying to play its wild card as the newfound champion of human rights. This is a country that has shrunk the size of its minority community from 23% in 1947 to 3% today, and has subjected Christians, Sikhs, Ahmadiyas, Hindus, Shias, Pashtuns, Sindhis, and Balochis to draconian blasphemy laws, systemic persecution, and blatant abuse and forced conversions. Their newfound fascination for preaching human rights is akin to trophy hunting of the endangered mountain goat, the Markhor. Pogroms, Prime Minister Imran Khan Niazi, are not a phenomenon of today's vibrant democracies. We would request you to refresh your rather sketchy understanding of history. Do not forget the gruesome genocide perpetrated by Pakistan against its own people in 1971 and the role played by Lieutenant General A.A.K. Niazi. A sordid fact that the Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh reminded this assembly about earlier this afternoon. Mr. President, Pakistan's virulent reaction to the removal of an outdated and temporary provision that was hindering development and integration of the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir stems from the fact that those who thrive on conflict never welcome the ray of peace. While Pakistan has ventured to upstream terrorism and downstream hate speech there, India is going ahead with mainstreaming development in Jammu and Kashmir. The mainstreaming of Jammu and Kashmir, as well as Ladakh, in India's thriving and vibrant democracy with a millennia-old heritage of diversity, pluralism, and tolerance, is well and truly underway. Irreversibly so. The citizens of India do not need anyone else to speak on their behalf, least of all those who have built an industry of terrorism from the ideology of hate. I thank you, Mr. President.